It's Tuesday, y'all.
Guess who's black? I mean, guess who's back?
I'm out. Show's over. Thanks for coming today.
Bye, y'all.
What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday to you. This is Beyond 2D. I'm one of your hosts, Jessica Dugas, and this is my fabulous co-host.
Hey, the one and only Ferrando Zay. How's everybody doing? Woo! I'm excited.
Are you feeling this eclipse energy from yesterday, Ferran?
Can you see my face? Can you see it's happening right here in this location? Ladies and gentlemen, we're live.
On location from the eclipse the next day.
The next day, a 1926 eclipse is coming up next.
I love it. Listen, we've been cutting up a little bit.
We or you?
You is.
What is that?
See, you got to point the right way for it to work. We're already pointing fingers on our brand new series that we're starting here on Beyond 2D about forgiveness and compassion.
Please forgive me for my behaviors.
And I'll attempt to have some compassion for
Thank you.
Where you're at. Brittany's out. Listen, Brittany was in the VIP 15 minutes early. That's how excited she is today. We were already passing the popcorn back and forth, and she said that she's here for the shenanigans today.
They already started. Welcome to the party. We're going to dance around this conversation. We dancing.
That's it. I'm so excited about this conversation. I had a moment, though, where I was talking about this in our Soul Saturday morning coffee hour that we have every Saturday in our community about I had a moment feeling like this one might be even more challenging than grief was.
Oh, I think they're connected.
So I think there are moments where it's connected, yes, but I'm like this. I started to feel a little like maybe I shouldn't have come today. Like,
see, I'm out of town, so we could have easily rescheduled.
Live and learn. As Joe Public says. Listen, that was a great song back in the day. See. One of the things I actually love this topic about forgiveness and compassion. Something. So back in 2020, I actually wrote 2 chapters in this book called Radical Self-Love. You don't know if you guys can see it here. I wrote 2 chapters in this book. It was compiled by Lorianne Davis and Laura Menzie. Lorianne Davis, we've had on Beyond 2D, the relationship expert.
Mm-hmm.
You've also seen her on literally every other show that we have here on the network. But she, she's a matchmaker as part of what she does in a relationship expert. And so one of the things that she talks about as she's counseling couples is loving yourself. And part of loving yourself is compassion. And I didn't even remember the 2 chapters that I wrote in this book are all about compassion. So I'm excited to bring some little quotes from the book when we get into next week's topic as well, which is focused on compassion. But today we're talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness and the foundations of how do we start to look at that word forgiveness and the root of the word forgive. So let's start by asking everybody this question. What does forgiveness mean or look like to you?
Who is Ferran Dozier for 100?
You are forgiveness? Tell us about that.
Can you go first?
Well, so it's interesting because I actually I feel I've always felt a really big connection between forgiveness and compassion because I feel like compassion has to be present in order for you to forgive. I think you have to have some level of compassion, of feeling something in order to be able to forgive. And this is an interesting road to go down because how many times do we say, like, don't be fooled or guided by our emotions? Like, and it's the emotion that fuels the feeling, which fuels the compassion, which fuels the forgiveness. So it's an interesting little road to go down when it comes in my own mind, when it comes to this. But forgiveness for me looks like a washing of something, completely blanking it out, and not, I don't want to say not addressing it any further,
Mm.
but not allowing it to hold us back from moving forward. And so the interesting part of all of the mess that I just set out there is that the textbook definition that we'll get into here in a few minutes both supports and doesn't support everything that I, which we're not surprised in typical Jessica fashion over here.
or the English dictionary either,
Yeah, yeah.
with its 15 different definitions. Of course not. Of course not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'm
Okay.
volleying the ball to you.
Okay. What I got is the return of forgiveness. It's me taking responsibility for a situation, and
Mm,
then also allowing that person, like, to not hold that against that person either. So it's for me, it's a two-part. It's a self-forgiveness because I'm not perfect, and recognizing that I'm not perfect, and recognizing that in my imperfection I do things, and I probably rub people the wrong way, or I do say things that could impact the person's emotional experience of myself or whatever that is. So it's recognizing that and taking responsibility for that, and owning that, but then also acknowledging the change of my behavior because I recognize of who I was being in that. It's not just what I did to you, but it's also who I was being in that conversation as well. So
mm,
it's not just like an easy one liner for me, because in order for me to have forgiveness, I have to understand that I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. So it's all how I'm listening, how my behavior. So, but it's actually for me, it's just take responsibility for whatever that disagreement is, and owning it, and then acknowledging it, and then acknowledging my behavior in that, and then also giving a solution of how I'm not gonna practice not doing that again. So it's like
mm.
parts for me to make that
Yeah.
complete as an experience for that person, because I can ask you for forgiveness and you can still say no,
Mm.
right?
Right.
So for me, it's the first part of that is me taking responsibility of whatever that experience is on your part, and my
Right.
part first too, though.
Yeah. What you're talking about really speaks to me because I also feel like it's a very layered
Yeah,
process.
for sure.
And especially where other if it's not just a self thing, if there's other people involved, you're going to have differing experiences, opinions, all of those different things. And I think it's really important to always start by bringing it back to self because ultimately we can't control other people. Like you said, you may ask for forgiveness and not get it, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah,
Forgive yourself and move on.
because
Um,
it lives. See, there's our words are so powerful that there's a lot of words that we use that doesn't live in another person's life experience. It lives in
right.
our experience, and forgiveness is one of those that lives over here. It doesn't live over there in the person. So if I feel like I altered someone, or I said something and I recognize it in my heart that maybe there's something that I said or didn't say, then I that lives over here in my space, not their space.
Mm,
So that's why I believe that it's initially the self forgiveness as we get into this, is more over here, and then allowing that person, that if there was an alt or a behavior emotional charge, it gives them the space to acknowledge that as well, and then they could maybe find the space to say, oh well, you know what, it wasn't just you, it was me as well, because I. And so it's a harmony experience. If it's done correctly, it could be a harmonious experience, and at the same time it gives that person an opportunity to accept that forgiveness or not. So it lives, it to me it lives in our own individual space. Not like I can't show you, oh there's forgiveness over there, like in nature.
Hmm.
like like, oh here's forgiveness. No, it's an experience, and it to me it lives, well how I learned it, it lives in my space. It's not outside of me.
Right, right. It's an experience thing, I think for sure.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things that, like you said, you can point to it out a window or something.
Yeah.
It's a feeling. It's an experience. Brittany said for her, forgiveness to me is looking past something and not allowing it to be a burden to yourself. So being
Mm.
able to again, that energy like we talked about of just moving on, being able to move on, which again it's a little bit in contrast of the definition. I want to talk about those for just a couple minutes here. So I started with forgiveness in the dictionary, which is a noun, person, place, or thing. So in this case, it's a thing. Number one says the act of forgiving, the state of being forgiven. Number two, and I actually am in love with this part, disposition or willingness to forgive. So, in
Hmm.
order to have forgiveness, there has to be a willingness
Hmm.
or a disposition of, which means your standard, your moral,
Hmm.
your choice, all of the things that your principles that you, it has to
Exactly.
be a principle that
Yes.
you live by, is a
Hmm.
willingness to forgive. So I actually, like, I got chills when I read that second one, because I was like, yes, it is about that personal resolve to practice forgiveness.
Yep.
Some of the synonyms: absolution, amnesty, clemency, compassion, which, so it's showing it's like literally the same thing,
Yeah.
which I've always seen it as different. So I kind of love that it's the same thing there. Dispensation, grace, mercy, remission, reprieve, vindication, which,
Grace and
that's
mercy.
an interesting word, the vindication one, because I think we typically hear that word in the negative
Negative,
context.
yes, in the negative context for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we're talking about being an energy, being an experience, I think thinking about forgiveness, it's forgiveness is, because it's a noun, it's a result of.
Hmm.
Forgiveness is a result of willingness and
Hmm.
good communication and, ability to work through things. There's things
Yeah.
that come before that
Yeah.
forgiveness, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
That's
then when I
yeah.
went to look up the actual word forgive, because it says the act of forgiving. Thank you so much for clearing that up, dictionary.com. Um, so it is, the word forgive is a verb, and it means to grant pardon or remission of, to absolve, to give
Mm.
up all claim
Hmm.
on account of, all
Hmm.
claim. So when
Hmm.
I read that, when I read that, I thought about specific instances in my head where I have used the word forgive
Hmm.
in regards to situation with other people. Cause in my mind, it's like what Brittany talked about, the moving on without
Hmm.
like a burden.
Hmm.
But have I given up like all bitterness, all resentment, all claim, all negative feelings towards? I don't think I
Nah.
can honestly say in 100% of cases that that's true for me.
Yeah.
I don't, do you feel like you're 100% clear, like you're healed of all, you don't have to forgive nothing or nobody else?
Oh yeah. Yes. For sure. And
You
and
feel
that's
like you're done, like you don't ever have to, like
yes.
you don't have to work on that?
Yes. When I learned forgiveness as the disposition and the willingness to stand in that forgiveness in that space, That's how I renewed my relationship with my dad and my parents.
Yeah.
That's how I've been able to forgive myself for my past and own my past. That's how I've been able to heal with my daughters and allow my daughters to talk to me and say what was on their hearts of how their experience of me was, and to heal those relationships. So yes, when you get to the point where you can forgive and forget, it literally disappears. And all
And
the
see,
things that I had about my dad for 35 years, in one weekend conversation, it all disappeared.
And see, I can see that, but for me, like I don't think that it's like everything else. I don't believe it's an arrival. At least not for me. I don't think it's an arrival because of this. Because we before we came on this show today, I had to go drop my son off at his he goes to play Magic the Gathering, and I go to drop him off. And if you want a real test of compassion and forgiveness, I encourage you to go drive somewhere and sit in traffic. Okay? I
Mhm.
encourage you to go sit in traffic because we're at a light, and it's one where you just get the green. So there's no turn green, there's no turn like, arrow. You just have to wait until the traffic's done coming and then turn.
Mhm.
And a woman behind me,
Ooh.
I was waiting to go because this is my if I would have just turned without it being safe, they would have hit my son
Right.
in the car. So I'm waiting because that's what you're supposed to do at the traffic light. And she's honking behind me, all upset because I'm not going.
Mhm.
Like, ma'am, are you going to pay for my car and my medical bills when somebody comes and hit me because I'm not turning fast enough for you? So in that moment, it popped up of like I'm I'm annoyed, I'm
Mhm.
angry, I'm all the things. I was able to switch it pretty quick to, you know what? I bet she's just had a bad day.
Mhm.
I bet she just had a bad day, but it still popped up. So
Mhm.
even though I have practiced the art of forgiveness or being in a state of forgiveness, that doesn't mean that those thoughts don't pop up and I don't need to shift them. Because I think when I say, is it gone? Is it done? Do I have to practice it anymore? That would mean that that anger, that frustration wouldn't even pop up, which I think is not like for me, it's not part of the human experience.
So what you're pointing to is definitely another level of forgiveness and his experience, because some things that you can be free from in forgiveness, that is complete and it disappears. There's some things in that forgiveness that you have to still manage. So yes, I've had some experiences when I discovered that I was mad at myself for sprinting that day that I collapsed and almost died. I
Mhm.
didn't know that I was mad at myself. I didn't know that I had to go back and forgive myself for that day that I chose to sprint and collapsed.
Yeah.
So when I discovered that I had to forgive myself, I had to do what you said, and I had to remember that when that thought came up about why my career is over and the upset and the what I was dealing with, I had to remind myself that I forgave myself about that.
Right.
And the
Right.
more that that popped up, and I remembered, oh no, I can't get mad at myself. I can't get mad about this conversation because I forgave myself. And the more I did that over time, I don't even think about it anymore. Like it's not that's not the thought that pops up, because I
Yeah.
reminded my subconscious mind, I've downloaded that I forgive myself in my mind, so that that's now inside of my heart in my
Yeah.
subconscious mind as part of my thoughts. Oh no, I forgave myself for that.
Yeah.
So yes, there is part that you do have to. Forgiveness is a moment by moment by moment
Right.
phenomenon, and that's what
Right.
you're pointing to. In some
Right.
cases, and I do believe that in some cases that if I said that I asked you to forgive me for forgiveness, and it's still like on me, whatever or something, I could then go back to you and say, you know what, I don't want to forgive you anymore. But
Mm.
I have to then deal with the world of unforgiveness,
Right.
because there's a world that comes with an experience that comes with forgiveness and unforgiveness.
Mhm.
So I have to be able to deal with that.
There's consequences no matter what you choose to do. There's consequences. Which I think is with any choices that we make. But I think for sure, there's that for me there's not going to be an arrival. Instead of an arrival, there's an awareness. So I am aware of what forgiveness is for me. I am aware of how it affects me and the consequences of either forgiving or not forgiving, even on a physical level. The work of Louise Hay, for example, talks a lot about how forgiveness and self-forgiveness and forgiveness as in regard with other people lays in on your whole physical body and what
Oh
it can do
yes.
to you, manifesting illness and things
Illness
like
is,
that.
yes, we
Like,
don't
it's
we don't realize
wild.
that. We don't
It's
realize that.
Yep. And I highly for anybody that's out there that wants a little bit more info on that, go find Louise Hay has 2 books, You Can Heal Your Life and Heal Your Body. I have both of those books, and they are literally like mind blowing on the different emotions and how they are tied to both forgiveness and our physical body. So definitely go check those out. Brittany
I wanna
said,
yeah. I
yes.
wanna say to what you just said is, for those of you who say you believe in karma, you can't have forgiveness and karma, because if with karma you're holding on to that, hoping that something happens back to that person.
Mm.
Again, it's over here. So how can you have forgiveness and then you want karma to come back on somebody for what they supposedly did to you?
I think so karma is one of those things that I think has been grossly misinterpreted by humans. I think I think there's so many things, many religious teachings about forgiveness across the board, from Bible to a whole bunch of other religions and religious texts, that
Mm-hmm.
I think have been grossly misinterpreted by humans over time. And so I always like to turn it around and point it back to myself and ask myself, like, how are you feeling about that? Because
Mm-hmm.
if it doesn't sit right with you, then
That's what I'm saying.
uh,
It lives over here.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. For sure. So definitely look at that. Also, forgive synonyms: absolve, condone, excuse, and forget.
Mhm.
That
That's
forget
it.
are is
Yes.
sometimes we hear that. How do you feel about that phrase, forgive and forget?
I used to, like everyone, most human condition, I didn't believe that, because you always had the memory of that episode, right? That it happened. But again, when you get to the point before this level of forgiveness and the self-examination of that feeling of something's going on inside of you around forgiveness, you've got to do the work. You've got to, hey, you know what? We all make mistakes. We all, so we have to give that grace to ourselves, just like we want to get it from other people, that I make mistakes. And if I live in that space that I make mistakes, then I'm going to be responsible for my mistakes. So I think, not that I think, but there's a lot of work that leads up to this conversation
Mm,
about getting to the space of, okay, let me go take responsibility and ask for forgiveness, because I want to alter my behavior. If you don't want to alter your behavior, then go say you're sorry or apologize, but don't use forgiveness.
mm,
Forgiveness is powerful when you take responsibility, acknowledge the impact of you and possibly on that person, let that person share the impact on them so you can get what their experience was. I went to ask people for forgiveness. They said, "Why are you calling me?" They were like, "Why are you calling me?" But I was taking responsibility for my behavior, right? Of how I saw I was acting in that relationship. And they were like, "Why are you calling me? Like, we're good." But
mm,
I could look in my heart and be like, "Yeah, maybe I wasn't a good person, or maybe I did say some stuff, or maybe I did something that I thought was that alt." And then there were some people that said, "I forgive you, but don't call me no more."
mm,
Like, there's levels, but it lives in our space. And so we have to give ourselves that space. Hey, we make mistakes. Like, nobody is perfect.
right.
We're not
Right.
perfect. And to me, that's an opening of then taking responsibility for your parts of these incidences that happen in our life.
Mm. Absolutely. So before we go to break, I want to dive into this question because I think after the break, we're going to talk about forgiveness as it relates to other people. But what does self forgiveness look like to you? Is our question for all of you out there in the audience right now. What does self forgiveness look like to you? Are you able to erase your own past faults or things that you deem as faults, your own past mistakes and things like that? For me, like I have done a lot of examining things that have happened in the past and really trying to look at things, compartmentalize with things. We talked about compartmentalization in other episodes regarding other topics, and put myself, like, look at things that I couldn't necessarily look at in the time when they were happening. Look at what was going on in my surroundings. Look at what led up to the event. Look at the things the influences that I had on my life. Looking at the tools I did or didn't have emotionally at the time.
Hmm.
Was I in it?
Hmm.
Because sometimes we get in this place of judgment about ourselves. We wouldn't have even known then what we know now in whatever space of awareness that we're in. So I for me, when I'm able to do a lot more forgiving of myself, when I'm able to compartmentalize a little bit and break things down and look at the full situation from a sort of mountaintop view as opposed to being in the moment
Hmm.
with whatever happened. And I think I'm also, as I've opened up my heart to forgiving other people, that's also helped me to forgive myself as well. I feel like they both kind of play off of each other a little bit, which we'll also talk about after break. But Kelly said to me, it's an amazing and hand personal learning experience. Sometimes it is more for self growth than anyone else.
Hmm.
And Kelly said it's also a journey and it is not always quick. And I think if we try to put some kind of timer on forgiveness, that's a good luck. good,
Yeah.
good luck with that. What does self forgiveness look like to you, Farhan?
You know, you kind of formulated for me as well is letting go of that guilt and that
Mm,
shame, right? And I before age 40, I would say I heard about shame, I heard about guilty or being or carrying guilt, but I never actually connected it to myself. It was always like an outside conversation. But in that development stages that from 40 until now, it was being able to recognize the diminished experience of myself in in the shame and the guilt. And then again, it goes back to taking responsibility for that episode, that because now you talk about it's a past experience now.
right.
So what did I make that situation mean about myself, about them? What emotions are attached to that? The shame, the guilt, and then being able to understand that, hey, you know what? We make mistakes. I make mistakes. And if this relationship is important to me, then how do I resolve it?
Mm,
And, you know, that's why I learned you can say, I'm sorry, you can say, I apologize, or you can say forgiveness. And for sure, forgiveness is the ultimate power release, because the way that forgiveness is the principle is used by, you will be able to forget in that level of forgiveness. So I had to recognize my shame, that diminished experience of myself
mm,
as a person. Like I'm upset at myself, and a lot of times growing up, we don't have this language that we get when we're adults. So
mm.
we experience these things over and over, and then we don't know what that is. And then when it comes time to try to deal with it, like, oh, that's shame. That's what shame looks like. Well, no,
Mm.
no wonder I can't ask for forgiveness. No wonder I'm still beating myself up about that relationship that I messed up.
Is it possible? I'm going, here we go, way down the rabbit hole. Is it possible to release guilt and shame? And what's up, Danielle? Release guilt and shame from choices that you may have made in the past, but not necessarily still be thrilled at what you chose to do. Like, is it possible to release the guilt and forgive yourself
Mhm.
for something that you may have done, but also simultaneously go, I could have done better. However, I'm not going to hold guilt and I'm going to be able to move on from this. Can you do the both at the same time?
You can do both at the same time because again, understanding where that's coming from as an experience, it may have been an unforeseen consequence that by doing this or behaving like this, that this was the result of my behavior or what I
Right.
said or what I did. So again, going back to when you peel those layers off of, okay, I what I said and what I did, I feel guilty and I have shame because of the experience or the embarrassment or whatever that shame is connected to. But then stepping back again and saying, well, man, I didn't think that would happen if I said that. I didn't think that could have been one of the things that occurred. It's still me taking that on myself. Like, okay, but maybe I could have said something different. Maybe
Mhm.
I said it in a way that I didn't mean to say because I was also dealing with something in my life that was, and I blurted that upset out at you, and you got offended by it. But that's not what I meant to say. Like, so it's so many layers and tied to that. But yeah, once you get to the core of that and you take 100% response, forgiveness is like an umbrella where you take 100% responsibility. Even if I don't think I said something to you, I
Right.
could be like, you know what, maybe I didn't say something that could have changed that conversation.
Mm.
So I can ask for, hey, forgive me because maybe I didn't say that in a way that I meant to say it. And now let me have an opportunity to correct that.
Right. Right.
So yeah, you can simultaneously, but again,
Mm.
the willingness to be a person who lives by forgiveness, that lives from those principles, you're going to clean up your life.
Right. Right.
You have an opportunity to clean up your life.
Right. Brittany said self-forgiveness is realizing that you have always tried your best in every situation, given the tools and knowledge that you had at the time.
Um,
She goes on to say, realizing that everything happened brought you to the moment that you are in. And when you choose to reflect, you can see growth and choose to celebrate that. I think
right.
some of that reflection is absolutely that of like, just as we reflect, part of one of the ways that I feel like we can forgive ourselves is just shifting that perspective a little bit. Instead of going like, man, I really screwed that up, we can go, well, it really could have been worse. I could have done XYZ, and it could have been, but I did the best I could do at the time. So choosing to find something, gratitude ties so heavily into this. Gratitude, and like just keeping that perspective that we've talked about. um Danielle said, I think all mistakes I've made, I've learned something from them and they've led me to where I am now. So that what's that, the Garth Brooks song, Unanswered Prayers. Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers, the lyrics say. So like
Yeah.
sometimes things, we make mistakes, but thank God it didn't go the way we wanted, because then maybe we wouldn't be where we are right now. Absolutely.
So with the way you just shared that, and some of what you shared was a description, like an activity to do, and
Mm,
then you went to an experience, right? So forgiveness, you don't just do forgiveness and it stays there.
mm,
You have to be forgiveness. Being forgiveness is a way to be, like it's a principle, like you said. You have to be used by forgiveness. So if you just can't do forgiveness and think it's going to just be out there in the existence of the world continuously, no, sometimes you might have to go back and revisit that
right.
and remind yourself, or if that person tries to bring up the past, you got to be like, hey, we talked about this before. Do you forgive me, or is there still something there in your space now
Right.
that you need
Right.
to find? Right. So it's a way to be, and gratitude is a way to be. Like,
Mm,
so there are some words there are action words
yeah.
that we have to be
Absolutely.
used by those words, and forgiveness, gratitude, acknowledgement, like those are ways of being. And you don't just do, you can do those, but you have, when you be those, there's an experience that comes with that.
Mm,
And the person that you're talking to with gratitude and acknowledgement, they're gonna get that fruit from you
right.
because they're gonna experience that. Oh wow, like you're sincere or you're for real. Like it's an experience, not just something that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Brittany said humans make an average of 20,000 decisions a day. We are bound to make a hiccup here and there. And I think that's an important lesson to remember as we talk about forgiveness with other people, which we're going to talk about after the break.
I
As
make
we go,
40,000,
right?
not
Hello.
20,
If you're
40,000.
if you're talking to us overachievers over here, how many of the
40,000. Raise it.
Listen, so we're going to talk about
Jeez.
forgiving when in context of other people after the break. But as we go to break, I want for some of you guys, you saw when Jade Redder was on Project Joy. I think it was last week, and she talked about turning words that we want to embody and that we want to have a part of our being and who we are to turn them into adverbs, meaning an ing at the end of the word. So when you
Mm.
turn the word, so we use that with joying on the show. And some of y'all saw me act a fool on that show. I'm like joying. Yep. There it is. Some of y'all saw me because literally, if you go back and watch that episode,
Did your
our
did you
the
your face
energy just
it changed?
completely shifted. Like I was
Yeah.
already, see, that's why I told her I don't need help. I was already hyper coming onto that show. And then I sat there going, joying, joying, joying. And by the end of the show, I felt high, like
Yeah.
literally, like
Yeah.
I felt some kind of way. But this is the activity I want you to do. I would love to go to the break. And while we're taking break, I want you to close your eyes if you need to, be thinking the word
My
forgiving,
emoji.
forgiving, 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 forgiving. Think about that as we go to break and you feel anything shift inside you. I just want a little science experiment here on Beyond 2D, and we'll be right back after the break. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh, man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man.
There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
WDCONSCT.org. Check it out. Love that work you're doing in the sickle cell community. And I thought it was great. Y'all had a little Farhan recently had my dad on his Trench Talk show.
Wow.
And that was great. Y'all had a little conversation about that too. So I love that you tied it in. And I didn't even know my dad knew anything about that. So I was just learning new things.
Your pops is cool. Your pops is cool.
I love it. Make sure you guys check out Trench Talk, Farhan's other show that he does as part of military broadcast radio, right?
Yeah, MBR. Yeah, MBR.us.
To go check that out for sure. So we've been talking about forgiveness as part of our new 4-part series on forgiveness and compassion, which we learned earlier are tied together, even by the definition, even by the dictionary. Love that as well. So before break, we talked about what forgiveness looks like to you and what a self forgiveness look like to you. And now we're going to kind of flip gears a little bit for the last few minutes of the show and talk about forgiveness as it was involves other people, which I'm already getting choked up over here over this.
Spit it out. Spit it out.
First question I have for you, because it kind of ties into where we came from here. Is it possible to forgive others if you can't forgive yourself? If you don't know how to forgive yourself, do you think it's possible? Because I have an opinion on this because it's the same along the lines of how people say you can't love other people if you can't love yourself. Um, and I have a pretty firm thought in that, but I'm gonna pass it to you first, Ron.
See. The human condition is powerful.
Mm.
It's powerful that it can make you think that I forgave them, right? But as soon as that memory in your mind, because again, it lives over here, you're going to be reminded of that situation with that person if you haven't truly forgiven them, because it's going to still bother you. Right. So when I forgave myself with my relationship with my father and my mother, my parents didn't change. So my dad still behaved the way he behaved, because that's how he behaves, the way he behaves. And he would still say things that upset me. But instead of catching it 2 months later, I caught it in 2 minutes. So when he said something, I reacted because it was normal. That was my normal reaction. And then I caught myself. And then I acknowledged, hey, Dad, please forgive me. I didn't mean to say that. What were you trying to say again? So again, because it lives in our space, you're still gonna. That's why I said that karma, like whatever that is for that person. If you haven't truly forgiven that person, it's gonna show up in your space, not there. People go about their life, and so we have no idea if that's really bothering them, or if it's bothering me or bothering both of us.
Right.
So if it's over here and you feel like you need to go ask somebody, say you're sorry or apologize or ask for forgiveness, it could be over here. Now their behavior might be behaving toward you because that's how you are thinking about what happened about that. Yeah. So I'm gonna respond to how I think that you think about me, and when I think about myself. So, you talk to me like that because you're still mad about that one situation. But are they? Or is that still me? Because I have a little bit of unforgiveness that I'm holding on to. Because I want to. So then you're looking at what I speak about at church. Your opinion about the situation. See, that willingness and that vindication could be giving up your view and your opinion about that. And about yourself. Because yes, that diminished experience, that, oh man, I didn't expect that to happen. Oh man, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Like, that's the stuff we don't tell those people.
Right.
In those conversations, that, oh man, I went home and I thought about what I said to you, and I'm calling you to see if that affected you because it's bothering me.
Right.
We don't do that's a different person.
Yeah. I think I agree with you where we're talking. So if we're talking about an instance where you have some sort of altercation with another person, I agree that it can come back to us, even if, let's just say, from an outside perspective, that the other person was wrong and whatever. let's just we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt in this situation. So let's just say that was the case. Okay. Yeah. Let's say you didn't do wrong. I do agree that it can still flip back around on you in instances like that. I think in general, with what I'm talking about here, I don't think it's necessarily impossible to have a heart of forgiveness and still have things that you have to forgive yourself for. I still, because Danielle pointed out the thing that I'm referring to here, that sometimes we're harder on ourselves than
Yeah,
we are on other people.
and that's the
So
problem.
right. So sometimes it can be like a situation where you're able to forgive, somebody else in the situation, but you still have work to do on yourself in whatever the
But
situation is.
that's that grace and that
Yeah.
mercy, it goes both ways.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I can't give you grace if I'm not giving myself grace.
Right.
So then what
Right.
is my view of myself and my opinion of myself? I'm not good enough. I'm not worth it. I'm not this. I'm not whatever. So that's always going to remind you that's why you messed up. See, because
Mm,
you're not a good person anyway. Remember all the stuff that you did back in the past that you didn't clean up, and then your mind is like, and it reminds you, and you're like, oh yeah, so woe is me,
right.
and then I beat myself up silently.
Yeah.
But where's that grace that I say that I have for people? So it's interpersonal relationship of forgiveness and it's interpersonal relationship of forgiveness,
Mhm.
and you've got to manage. You got to manage both to have
Right.
it complete. That's how I live by it.
Kelly saying, yes, seeing it in your personal space and shifting your own perspective is key. I don't think you can change anyone, but you can give them grace for their own human behavior.
Exactly, because when you realize that if I realize I make mistakes, then I'm going to give you the same room to make those mistakes too. So I can't be mad at you if you
Right.
make a mistake or you say something to me or you blow your horn at me because I do it too.
Yeah.
So then what is that horn being blown behind me make me mean about me as a person?
Mhm. Right.
And then you beat yourself up silently with your subconscious because you got all this evidence of unforgiveness and I'm not a good person and oh yeah I did that one thing. No, I went in my life, Jessica, and I cleaned up relationships as far as I could go back with people
Mm,
because I saw that I could have done something or said something or not have said something that could have harmed that relationship.
right.
And then whoever came in my mind that was around those conversations, I called them
Mm,
ex-girlfriends, friends, like people, family, like I because I could see that how I felt about that probably could have been bothering them too. But
yeah.
by calling them and asking them to forgive me, guess who also got free? Because I took responsibility because I made the call. They didn't call me first. Sometimes we wait for people to call us to forgive me. My mom and dad, they should call me first. I'm not calling. I'm not gonna forgive them. They should be calling me first. And then nobody never calls. And then now tie it to grief and that person dies and then you haven't had a chance to clean that relationship up and now you're living with that guilt or you're living with that
Mm,
regret and resentment. So yeah,
right.
forgiveness is important in relationships. That's the
I,
layers of it.
right. I know that you mentioned, you forgave and you take that step, which ties into my next question, which is, can you forgive someone who has not apologized or is not sorry for what they've done? Um, and so I think in can you is it possible to forgive someone? Do we think let me I want to hear from y'all out there too. Is it possible to forgive someone? I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about in self-forgiveness.
Mhm.
Can you forgive yourself and still go, that wasn't a great choice, Jessica? Is it possible to forgive someone and also like what they know that what they've done is not like okay with, like it's not good, it's not in alignment with you, whatever. If
Mhm.
they're truly not sorry for what they've done, does that impact your ability to forgive them? Because I think for me, if I'm being really honest, it makes it a little more challenging for me to get into that, like to It takes longer to flip that switch of forgiveness, because especially if it's a situation where they're still like rubbing it in your face for whatever reason, because then we got to look at another topic we talked about before, which is boundaries.
Right.
we got to talk about we got to
Right.
talk about that.
Right. So what you're
So
saying, yeah, what you're saying for me is true in this aspect of when you really drill down to forgiveness, it's really for you, not for them.
mm,
It's really because it lives over here. So it's really for you. And it gives that person an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? Farron came to me and he asked me to forgive him for some stuff that I don't even know what he's talking about because I was right in what I did, right? But guess what? Forever, that seed is planted that when they think about Farron around that subject, well, he did ask me for forgiveness. Like they'll never be able to not say that you came to them for forgiveness. So
right.
that could shift their heart one day and recognize that I'm carrying all this mad at Farron, and he actually asked for forgiveness, and I'm still holding on to it. That gives them the space to come back and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to talk to you because I've been carrying something.
Right.
So it gives that other person an opportunity, a powerful opportunity, because if I've asked you to apologize, if I apologize, please, I apologize, but I haven't changed my behavior, then my integrity, my word to you is gonna diminish because here comes Farron again apologizing. This is the 15th time. So now my word to you is diluted or broken because I'm just apologizing, but I'm not changing my behavior. Forgiveness, you also change, you acknowledge it and you change your behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes back to many conversations that we've had on this show is that no matter what you choose to do, you can forgive someone all you want, but or you cannot forgive. But either way, you've got to be good with the consequences of that. They may not
Exactly.
ever get to that point where
Exactly.
they realize they were in the wrong and they want to apologize to and all that. You got to be ready for literally anything because you cannot, it has to be for you. If you're waiting for if you are forgiving for them to respond, you're not going to
Yeah.
get that. That's
Yeah.
you're not guaranteed that. I wanted to, some of the comments here. Brittany
What did I
tells us
say? What did I
regularly.
say?
Listen, Brittany said yes, but that doesn't mean I want to be around that vibe. And she said my fallback game is heavy.
No, let me touch on that because she's correct. This is what I learned recently from church.
Yeah.
That forgiveness is for the person, but you don't have to be around the behavior.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's something that I learned when you talked about boundaries in those previous episodes. I recently got present too from church that the judgment that I don't want to have is about you as a person. Now I don't have to be around your behavior. And I can tell you, hey, I like you, I appreciate you, but I'm not going to be around your behavior. And that's fair.
Yeah.
But to not be around you and not tell you is different.
Yeah.
That's why I say you have to acknowledge, hey, you know what? I'm not mad at you, but I don't want to be around your behavior. So her step back game and be around those vibes, that's to me, that's what you're talking about in the experience of boundaries, because I don't have to be around you. I can still love you, be your friend, talk to you, but when it comes to your behavior, you got to go check that.
Yep.
And I have every right to say I don't want to be around you with that.
Absolutely. And
That's
I have
not
such a
judgment.
good story about this that I want to share in our third week. Because our third week, you guys, our third week,
I'm
we're going to be
sick
talking
already.
about Farron's sick, he's not going to show up. Raise your hand out
Week
there if you
3.
think he's bluffing. Okay. So episode 3 of this series, we're going to be talking about healing the parent-child relationship. Bridges of healing, navigating forgiveness between generations. And one of the story that I had to share with you guys on that episode is super powerful because it talks about what we're talking about here. Something that as I was dealing with my own stuff with my parents in my own mind, and then I go into church and they pull up that Bible verse about honor thy father and mother. Excuse me, what about if What about if insert what? Okay, I'm so excited to share that story with you in week 3. You gotta wait though. You gotta wait because we
I'm
only
not
have
gonna
so
make
much
no
time.
comments. No more comments about that.
I'm so excited about that episode.
Mm.
Okay, so listen. Let me see. Danielle said, "Yes, I can forgive for myself to move on from the
Hmm.
situation."
That's
Kelly said, "That's a hard one." And I appreciate that you're saying it takes longer because sometimes I think when something's being rubbed in your face and there is really not an ounce of forgiveness or compassion or sorriness or anything from the other person, it does make it more challenging in our human to go, okay, well, I'll still forgive you even though you're rubbing it in my face. I think it is more challenging, but I think you can too because it is more for yourself.
but that works. But see how you describe that? Are they actually rubbing it in your face, or is that an
Sometimes yes.
experience? Like with
Sometimes
a,
yes.
you know what?
The listen, if you my girls out there, some of y'all my girls out there that are empaths and can feel energy the way that I feel it, yes, it physically feels like that at times.
But is
Physically.
it?
In it physically the
Are they
energy
are
feels
they
like that,
literally? Do
yes.
you? But are they actually taking that and they're doing like this to you just to
The
like
energy feels like that,
not
yes.
the
In a
energy, not the
physical
energy,
in it when you feel it in a physical way, Farhan, yes.
but that lives in your space.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
that's
So
also that's how we listen, we're going to have it out right here on the show because I appreciate your commitment to understanding where people are coming from. But
mhm.
in that same breath, you have to understand that people aren't going to put things in words that make you comfortable. So you got to meet somebody where they are. If they say to you, I feel like my heart is breaking, then attempt for 5 minutes to put yourself into that position and go, what must it feel like for their heart to break instead of going, well, you shouldn't say that because that's not actually what's happening.
Yeah.
Flip the script and go, what must it feel like for them to use that phrase?
Yes, because it is a description. Yes, we do describe our feelings and emotions. We do that. And sometimes we don't use the right words to describe them effectively. So that energy that we're talking about is over here. It's not over there with them. It's not over there. The energy is over here. So that means
Is
you're still carrying something in that space, not them.
Right. So, but if that is their physical experience and you are not in their body to feel what it feels like to them in because we already talked about the fact that this forgiveness topic can weigh heavy on your physical body. So if
Yes.
they're feeling like when they say they feel something, when I talk about feeling, a lot of times I am speaking about what it feels like on my physical body. That is an experience that I feel as an empath. So if I
Yes.
feel literally energy pressing on my face like a pillow, that's a physical experience. That's not something I'm feeling going, "Oh, I feel happy
No,
today. I feel
but
sad today."
that pillow energy is in your space. It's not coming from that person to you.
Right, but then
It's,
you can't say, "Is it really then in your face, Jessica?"
but that is
You
a real
can't say
question.
that because it
But that
is.
is a real question.
But then when I said it was, you questioned me.
Yeah, because it's are they actually rubbing? I people say, "Oh, I feel like you treat me like a wet towel. I feel like you treat me like trash." Like people describe their
Okay,
feelings
but
in
that is a
ways.
completely different situation because you're not actually trash. Like you're not literally like a rolled up piece of like
Yeah,
paper.
and I said they're not actually rubbing it in your face.
But that's
Not
what it
actually.
feels
It
like.
feels like that, but they're not actually doing that.
Right, but I'm not imagining myself as in a garbage can. That's a that's a it's a I'm trying to tell you from sometimes people use words not because it's what it compares to. That's sometimes people use words because that's actually what it feels like. Like they're
I
not
understand.
necessarily going, my heart is breaking because that's what they equate it to. Sometimes it feels like
Yes,
their
that's the power of the
actual heart
body.
is breaking.
Yes, that's
So
the power of the
instead of
body.
so what I'm saying, if we're going to as leaders step up and meet people where they are and have these difficult conversations,
Mhm.
instead of immediately going to, is that actually what is going on? Is that actually what happens? To
That's part of
pause.
the difficult that's to me that's part of that difficult conversation.
And I'm saying I think there's opportunity for us to pause,
Oh yeah,
and
for sure. I would.
before
Of course, I
going
agree.
there
Of course, I agree to that. Of course,
and saying
of
what
course, I agree to
must
that.
it feels like, because when we start going, that is not your experience, that is not what's actually happening, that's
Well,
discounting
yeah.
other people's experience.
Well, yeah. Of course, but at some point in that conversation, they're gonna realize if again if I tell the truth about my feelings and emotions, I'm not. I'm even though it feels like they're rubbing it in my face, they are literally not rubbing it in my face. And as soon as you can separate that feeling and emotion from reality, there's a space that you can your language can shift because it's not it's the truth that how you feel, but it's not the truth.
Okay,
And a
so
lot of times we live in our feelings and emotions because that's of course our body sensations, all that's all real. But how to get out of that is to look in reality and say, yes, it feels like they're rubbing it in your face, but is it really rubbing in your face? Like, and then so when you say, well, no, they're not actually doing it in my face, then there's a space to say, okay, so then where's your feelings coming from that you feel like they're rubbing it in your face?
okay, so when we talked about communication,
Mm-hmm.
there are two parts to communication, or
Yes.
kind of three parts, but do you remember what those parts were?
The harmonious piece of it, listening, listening.
Listening, huge
Mm-hmm.
piece, speaking, processing. Like those
Yes.
were kind of the three parts that we talked about. The listening piece is what we're missing here. The listening piece is what we're missing here, because if I say to you, it feels like you're rubbing it in my face. If
Mm-hmm.
I say to you, it feels like my heart is breaking. The important part here is not just me being able to possibly shift my language. If that's something in, if there's another way for me to put that that effectively shares the physical experience that I'm having, there's
Yeah.
also the part where you as the listener get to go, I'm not gonna take it personally.
Well,
I'm
yeah, of
not gonna
course.
take hang on, hang on. I'm not gonna take it personally, and I'm not gonna react to this. I can have a conversation because she said, "Feels like." She didn't say, "I
Yes.
am."
Right.
So, my point in all of this is it takes two, but when we start to point out that how people are saying it is wrong, especially in a conversation where we're talking about how we can forgive each other, you're it's like when you tell your wife to calm down. How'd that work out for you? How'd that work out for you?
Calm
Let me
down.
know. Let me know
Calm
how that
down.
worked out
I'll
for
let you
you.
know when I get one. How
We
it
just
plays
like,
out.
my point is that it's a two-way thing.
No,
We're
I
if
agree.
we're
No, I agree. I agree that
yeah.
in a normal setting, of course, what makes you feel like that? What makes you say that? But in this setting, as we're talking about it, my question is, are they actually rubbing it in your face? That's going to be
Mhm.
part of the conversation because you have to be able to separate the reality of it and our
Right.
emotions. We have feelings and emotions, and we don't have to become them. And the more that we practice that, we can separate who we are from our feelings and emotions. Then you have the ability to step out of that. Yeah, I feel like it, but then what is the reality of it? Oh, the reality of it is I'm still upset about something, or I don't like their behavior about that. It's we're saying the same thing. It's just, yeah, I didn't say it to you in a compassionate way. I said it. Are you really having it rubbed in your face?
Mm.
And there's for some people, there's an opportunity to say, no, it's not for real. No, it's not. And then we go into, so then what is it? What are you carrying? What is that experience for you? Why do you feel like it's being rubbed in your face? I didn't invalidate your experience. I asked a question before I gave my spiel. That's
Right, but
all.
then what happened when I answered the question? That's my question.
What happened? I said, is it really? What did I say?
Right.
that what I
So
said?
sometimes in our conversation, I feel like it's important to we may feel like it may be our experience, and this I think this is so important when we're talking about forgiveness.
Hmm.
It may be in our perspective, in our experience, that we are not invalidating the other person's experience by what we're
Right.
saying,
But they
but we
still
can
feel it.
sometimes tell by their
Oh
reaction
yeah, of course. Yeah.
that they may
Their
feel
response. Yeah,
invalidated
their response. Yeah, for sure.
by how we've worded things, and it's that I feel like it's that dance that needs to happen, that in a if this was a back and forth like conversation that we're having about how we can forgive each other. I think it's so important to have those like mini moments of forgiveness throughout the
Yeah.
conversation, of where we're going, that didn't come out right. Okay, let me not say it like that again. Let me not
Right.
say it like that again. And me going like, I understand that's how you put things, but let me share why this is upsetting for me and how I feel like we can do better, and continually forgiving each other with these kind of micro forgiveness moments throughout the conversation. And
And
I
then I would respond and say, you know what, Jessica, I realized that I said something that maybe came across a little invalidating or upsetting around the rubbing the towel in your face. Please forgive me because that's not what I meant to say. I was really just trying to get to what's going on in your experience, and
right.
that's all I really meant from that. Can you forgive me for that?
I will absolutely forgive you for that. If you can forgive me for sometimes using very descriptive words as I do to describe the very physical experience.
I
um
forgive you because I used to do the same thing, so I know how that feels.
Listen, and
I know
sometimes
what that feels like.
that's just sometimes the way people communicate is just part of how they best express themselves.
Yeah,
And we need to remember that it's not 99.9999999% of the time, it's not about you.
right.
It's not about you. We go back to this forgiveness piece. It comes back to us and how we
Yeah,
communicate, we process things, and we gotta go back to that self.
and all the feelings and emotion attached to it.
Listen, I know my girls out there. I want to put this was so funny at this one moment. As I was talking, Kelly's like literally, yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep, and like, yep, all the way down.
Of course she's
I
gonna agree with
know.
you.
Well, because listen, so many of us that have been a part of this Breakthrough Show Network community for so long, we share a lot of similar experiences.
Yeah.
Especially those of us, like I mentioned, being empaths out there and feeling things in a very physical way. They felt that in that moment too, because they're like, yes, I felt it right in my face before. So it's
Thank
like,
you for the
listen,
demonstration.
I'm here with you girls. I'm here with you ladies. Forgiveness is happening on a topic of forgiveness. How bittersweet. I love that.
Exactly. There we go. Examples.
Um, so listen, we gotta that's part of what's been important to me with this series, with this show,
Yeah.
period, is that anything we talk about this show, I want you guys to know, and Farhan can chime in as well, that I really make an effort both on air and after the show to apply things to my life and look at things
Sure.
differently. What was the one we were talking about, that one topic, and it was
It was the
mind blowing for
boundaries.
you.
It was
Yeah, it was
boundaries.
about yes,
After
it was the
after we
boundaries
went
one.
after we had the break in between it, I had a whole nother revelation of, and I was like, and I felt that in my body
Yep,
because I felt the experience of, and I
yep,
was like, oh my God, that's what she was
yep,
talking about.
yep.
And I had
It's
a
a whole
whole nother view of
whew.
boundaries.
All right. So we talk about
We
the
learn
first
from
step
our
to
own show.
that's it. And that's important to me. I walk my talk. I'm not
Yeah.
down to just regurgitate things and then
Yeah.
move on.
No.
Like that's not where
No.
I'm at in my life. And that's why, I think we're doing this show together, because we're both in that space, where that's where we want to do. All right.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, we continue this conversation with living compassion. We're going to dive into compassion. I'm going to share with you some of the excerpts from my chapters of radical self love. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my lifestyle. It's not going to be the full show, but I want to tie that in a little bit because it is something that's very important in my world.
For sure.
Episode 3, which is coming up in 4 weeks, we're gonna talk about bridges of healing, navigating forgiveness between generations.
Who picked these topics?
Okay.
Where my men? Where the men at? Men, fellas, I got nothing. I'm trying
Farron
to do this
needs some
example.
support here.
I'm trying to do this example live and in person and in color. And y'all not even there to like back me up. Like, yeah, man, you're right, man. No feelings. Where y'all at? All right.
I just listen. Okay, and
All
episode 4. The final episode, we will talk about beyond ourselves, how forgiveness transforms the world. We'll talk more about leadership on that day, and how it really can change the world. It is forgiveness, compassion, they are a ripple effect. And it is what Farron talked about earlier, a state of being. So how can we continue to be and act and put these things that we've talked about in action moving forward? So that'll come up on the final week. Brittany said, I love how all the topics you spoke about all leads up to forgiveness. I know so many things we've talked about tie into this topic. Amazing. They are all intertwined. Please, Farron, know I'm huge back in church. I'm a Jessica girl, but I have loved listening to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Where my fellas at?
All the members of the Church of Jessica are here this evening. The collection plate will be passed in a moment.
You know what?
Please
I got
give
work.
generously.
I got work to do. I gotta find these. Where's my fellas at?
You need to get your peeps in the.
They don't want to go beyond 2D. They want to stay one dimensional.
That's it.
That's the problem.
That's it. Sorry, so Danielle's like, sorry.
All right, Danielle. All right. Thank you.
I love it. I love you so much, my friend, and I appreciate.
I love you too. Thank you.
I appreciate you so much. I appreciate all of you that come and listen to the rabbit hole, the bickering, the all of the good, and take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and then you have
the facts of life. The facts of life. Where's Tootie? Where's Tootie?
I don't know. Who's that? Is that we have a mascot? We need a mascot named Tootie.
With braces.
I love y'all so much. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas. This is my fabulous co-host,
Farron Dozier. Bye.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks, 6 p.m. Eastern time, for another episode of Beyond 2D. Bye, everybody.
Oh my gosh, we made it.
Here. Bye.